I'm going to start a recording here for people who aren't able to join us today. And I'm going to share our slides. All right. So using Microsoft Word and also APA, that didn't all fit on the title slide. But that's what our workshop is about today. So yeah, anytime you have questions, feel free to let me know. Okay. So of course you've probably all heard of Microsoft Word. I probably don't need to explain it to you. It's a word processing software for creating written documents. So if you don't have it open already on your machine, please open Microsoft Word. I'm going to be using screenshots and screen shares from the desktop version. Your version might look slightly different depending what year you purchased your software, but the basic layout should be the same. If you don't have access to the full version of Microsoft Word, you can access the free online version at office.com. But remember that it won't have as many features as the full paid version. And just a friendly reminder, folks, we're getting some audio in here. If you're not currently asking a question, please make sure your microphone is muted, okay? I think everyone's muted now, but please, if you do have a question for me, unmute yourself and I'll be happy to help. Okay, so as you can guess, we'll probably need to start a new blank document. So in Word, I want you to go to the File tab and then click New and Blank Document. You may have already done this, so if you've already done it, you're one step ahead. Okay. So the first part of this workshop is going to focus on the basic page setup for your Microsoft Word document. It's hard for me to know kind of how familiar everyone is with Word. Some of you may have been using it a long time. Others, it's very new to you. So I'm going to go through the basics first before I go into some of the more advanced features. So basic page setup includes setting the paper size for your document, setting your margins, which is the space on either side of the words in your document, setting the line spacing, so single space, 1.5 space, double space, and setting up columns of text. A lot of the time, you'll just be doing a single column for most university assignments, but there may be times you need 2 columns of text on a single page or maybe more. Okay. So, page setup. When in Microsoft Word, and I'll show you this in a screen share in a moment, if you go to the Layouts tab, and you click the kind of down corner arrow in that corner, it'll bring up an extended menu. In the page setup dialog box, it'll open up, it'll pop up, and you'll want to click the paper tab. In North America, the standard kind of document size is letter, which is 8.5 by 11 inches. Don't know what exactly that is in metric, but if you're in centimeters, it'll display the equivalent. But you want to make sure that it's set to letter. In the same blank document, go to Layout and click Margins. So in the Layout tab, click the Margins icon on the far left side. For most undergraduate assignments, you will use either normal, which is about 1 inch all around your text, or narrow, which is 1/2 inch. Quick tip for everyone, although many professors and instructors follow the same guidelines, some professors and instructors might be a little eccentric. They might have their own requirements, so always make sure you double check with them for the layout requirements for your assignment. So we're going to use normal for this exercise. So that's 1 inch to 2.54 centimeters setting. Now setting our line spacing. So I was mentioning single space, double space, etc. We'll talk about doing that now. Okay. So in the same blank document, I want you to go to the Home tab and click the line spacing icon. And that icon looks like this. It has one arrow pointing up, one arrow pointing down, and then some lines. And then click that, and there's a drop-down menu. Again, for a lot of university assignments, you're going to be selecting double space, so 2.0. But that might vary a bit more depending on the type of assignment. So always check your assignment requirements first, or ask your professor. Oops. So yeah, just repeat that because I don't want to go too quickly here. Drop-down menu, select the line spacing that you want for this exercise. We're going to use 2.0, which is double spacing. Time to save. So to save yourself heartache, I've been in this position where you've worked on something for hours and then you forget to save. It's not fun, not fun. I think I cried when that happened because I spent many hours on that assignment. So learn from me. Don't learn the hard way, learn from me that you want to be saving frequently. So you should always save your Word documents every at least 10 to 15 minutes, if not more frequently, so you don't lose your progress. So you can go to File, Save to save the file. So just click File, drop down to Save. For now, you can call this Word, Workshop, Practice, whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. And then click OK. Going forward, most Windows computers have a shortcut keys you can press to save. Control S, that'll save you a lot of time rather than going up to File and scrolling down to Save and all that. So just Control, CTRL, and hold that down plus Save. Control S for save. Okay. So going into part 2 now, paragraph setup. Actually, before we go into part 2, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to open up and stop our slide share, and I'm going to go to our document. So this is what our document looks like. You're going to probably wonder where I got all this text. So I'll tell you in a minute. But yeah, so just so we're all on the same page, we set our layout. So our margins we set here to normal, okay? We also set our line spacing here, and clicking that to 2.0. You see I can change it, and as I change it, the document looks different, but we're gonna stick with 2.0. Okay, going back to our slides. Sorry, there's no elegant way for me to move between documents in Zoom, unfortunately, so that's the best I can do. Okay. So paragraph setup, the next part of our presentation. So for paragraph, you're going to need some text, and I'll explain where we're going to get that text in a minute. But in this section, we're going to be setting up different paragraph settings for the document, such as the text alignment, so where the text appears on the page, and indentation settings. So we need to get that text though. Probably you all can't just rattle off 1,000 words randomly. So to save us some time, I like this website a lot, is lipsum.com. And it's from an ancient Roman document, I think. I want to say Seneca or Cicero, I can't remember. But it's just Latin text. I don't know what it means. I don't speak Latin, so I'm sorry. But we just need some random text to put into our document so we can play with it. So if you go to lipsum.com, if you scroll down, it'll say generate lorem ipsum, and you can generate different amounts of Latin text. We're going to need about 10 paragraphs, which is about 1,000 words. So you can put 10 paragraphs or 1,000 words, and then click generate lorem ipsum, and just Once it's generated, I want you to copy that sample Latin text, so just highlight it with your mouse, with your cursor, and then paste it into your Word document. And after you paste it in, some of you, you might be like, oh no, it went back to single spacing. That's okay. All you have to do is go back up to that menu, which I just showed you, and go back and select 2.0 for double spacing. Okay. I'll show you all this again in the Word document in a minute. So we're going to be setting the text alignment. So in the sample document you have open in Word, you'll find a set of icons on the Home tab that has a series of straight horizontal lines. So just like we see here in our image. These buttons modify the text alignment. If you do not see these icons, you can also highlight the text you want to change, right-click, and select the paragraph menu, and I'll show you that in a minute. Most assignments in university will be left justified. What does that mean? So that means all of the text along the left-hand side here, it's all lined up in a straight line. And then the right side will be kind of a ragged edge. That's how you know it's left aligned. So we're going to click the left align button, so it looks just like how I described, all lined up along one side, then the lines go out, and then the right side's ragged edge. Okay, I'm going to stop my share here, and I'll show you what that looks like in the Word document. Okay, you see we have our Latin text here. Lorem ipsum, blah, blah, blah. And then goes down for several pages. And there's some other things which I'll show you how to do shortly. So we're going to set our alignment. So you'll see this is how we set our paragraph heading. So align left is what we'll use most of the time in university, but we do have other options. So you'll see with left aligned, it's all straight along here, and then ragged on the right edge. So let's say we do center. You'll see it's ragged on both sides because it's centering the text, so it's in the middle of the page. If we do right, then the right side is all lined up, and then the left side is the ragged edge because it's moving all the text to the right-hand side. But like I said, most of the time in university in North America, we're going to do align left. You'll see that it only moves the text, it only changes the text where your cursor is. So the paragraphs below didn't change. So let's say there's one paragraph that I just want to center. So probably an easy way is just to highlight that paragraph and click center. The paragraph above it didn't change. It's just the current paragraph that I've highlighted. But I'm going to change that back to left aligned. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop my slide share here, or stop my Word share. Go back to our slides. Indentation settings, indenting. So we all know, I think we all know what indenting is. It's where one line of the text is moved to the side, or vice versa. There's one line that's not moved, and then subsequent lines are indented in or pushed in. It's kind of hard to describe, but I will show you that in the document. So in the sample document, I want you to highlight all the document text with your cursor, and then right-click, and then click paragraph. So you'll right-click with your mouse, pop-up menu will appear, and I want you to select the paragraph option. This will bring up the paragraph settings menu. We're going to select indent and spacing tab on the top left corner. It's just like this. So most text in your body paragraphs will indent the first line. This is pretty common with university assignments. So we'll select first line, and we'll indent ½ inch. So your first line of text for each paragraph will be moved ½ inch to the right. And we're going to click OK. I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. So that's a regular indent, but then we also have hanging indents. Some of you may, well, what's a hanging indent? I'll explain. In the paragraph menu, you can also set it under special to hanging, also called outdent. Hanging indents indent every line after the first new line. So it looks like this. The first line is left justified, and then every other line is indented inward. Well, when would you use that? Most commonly, it'll be like a bibliography or references page, works cited page. That's one common use of a hanging indent, or block quotes. If you have a large quote of text, like 3 or 4 sentences, you would use a block quote to distinguish it between the rest of your text for your essay or report. So yeah, in that same special menu, select the indent type to hanging, set up hanging indents for a section of highlighted text. So I'll show you this right now. Okay, so we have our paragraph here. I'm going to highlight some of our text. Okay, too far. There we go. Then I'm going to right click with my mouse and then select paragraph. Looks like this. Just move my dialog box here. Okay. So in that menu, we'll see currently we don't have an indent here, but we can change that. So we can go to 1/2 inch and then click OK. Wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, folks. So first line, that's what I forgot to do. Okay, so under special, we go to first line and then by 0.5 inches. So left should be 0, right should be 0, but under special, we're going to do a first line indent of 1/2 inch and click OK. There we go, that's better. It's Monday, folks. I was on vacation last week, so my brain's still waking up. Okay, so we got our first line indent. It's indented 1/2 inch, whereas the rest of our text is left justified with the margin. Great. But let's say, well, what if I want to do a hanging indent? What if this is like a bibliography entry or a block quote, whatever it might be? No problem. So instead of first line, click hanging, and it's still 1/2 inch. Maybe it's a 1/4 inch. Your professor might have a preference. You can always ask them. And then it looks like that. So we have our hanging indent here. Most of the time, especially for first year assignments, you'll be only using this for like a works cited page, a bibliography. Okay. But that looks a little funny, so I'm going to go back to our first line because that's more normal for body text in the document. First line, 1/2 inch. Okay, good. All right, back to our slides. Time to save. So if you haven't already, you want to go save your document. So 2 options. You can go to File, Save, like we did at first. Make sure you click OK. Or on most Windows computers, you can do Control S. If you have a Mac, it might be Option S. You can try that. But that's much faster. That's what I do, is Control S. Okay. Part 3, figures, tables, and equations. So getting into some more interesting things. All right, so in this section, we're going to learn how to insert figures, so pictures, graphs, tables, and equations into your Word document. So it can look something like this, a little more visually interesting. All right. Okay, so under the Insert tab, you have all these tabs up on your top ribbon. We're going to go to the Insert tab. You have several options for inserting figures, so pictures, shapes, charts, etc. This is all in the illustration section of that Insert tab. So you're going to select the type of figure you want to insert. Once the figure has been inserted, you can modify different settings such as text wrapping and captions. Okay. So what does that look like? So, well, what's wrapping text first? I'll explain that. So wrapping text, so you see we have this lovely picture of a superb owl. And then you'll see the text is wrapped around nicely. It doesn't go over the picture, it wraps around beside it. So you need to right-click the figure, the picture, the chart, whatever it is, and select the wrap text option. For most university papers, you would want it to wrap square or tight. So that means that if you have like a square picture, the text wraps around it. Tight is similar, it just moves in even a little bit closer, so you have a little bit less white space. Okay. So before we go on to talking about tables, I'll show you what some of this looks like in our document. Okay. So you'll see here, I have a chart here. When in Rome, Veni, Vidi, Vici. You like your Roman jokes, you might figure out what that means. And same with et tu, Brute. But yeah, so I inserted a chart here. Maybe we'll insert something new so you can see the start of the process. Let's say I want to insert some random shape in here. Won't really make sense in the context of a university paper, but just so you kind of see what this looks like. So we'll try the online pictures one. See if we can get this work. Type in ancient Rome. See what comes up. Okay, we've got a picture of the Colosseum here. Perfect. Okay, so you got our picture of a Colosseum. It's a little big. So you'll see what I do to resize it is I hover my mouse over here, and then I hold down the Shift key. And the reason why you want to hold down the Shift key is that keeps the proportions the same. So the height and the width will be the same proportion. Okay, that's about the right size. You're like, the text looks all funny now. Doesn't look very professional. No problem. So we right-click the picture we have here of the Colosseum and click Wrap Text. So like I said, most university papers will want to select square. You see the text wraps around nicely here. What are some other things we could do? Well, we could insert a caption. What's a caption? It's this little bit of text that explains to you what you're looking at. Okay, so I'll just move my, see if it's figure 2. Probably gonna forget how to spell Colosseum. Colosseum, yeah, wrong. I think that's wrong. Yeah, that is wrong. Colosseum, there we go. Colosseum in Rome. Okay, so there's our caption, pretty easy. All we had to do was right click, insert caption. Great. Okay, what are some other things we could change? In terms of the wrapping text, we'll see what tight looks like. It's pretty similar to square. Most people don't notice the difference. Through, or top and bottom, sorry. Top and bottom means that the text goes around top and the bottom, but doesn't go along the side. That generally doesn't look as good in an essay layout, which is why most of the time we're going to select square. Text wraps around nicely. Great. Okay. You see we have some other pictures and charts. We have our superb owl here, figure 3, and then some equations. I think there was a table too. So we'll move on next to tables. Inserting a table. You might use this pretty regularly, particularly if you're in a STEM program. Using tables in your reports is pretty common. So what is a table? Well, if you think of kind of like Microsoft Excel, that spreadsheet, you have rows and you have columns, that's a table. And it's just a great visual way of sharing a large amount of data. So first, you want to put your cursor, so your mouse, at the point in the document where you want the table to be. Then you're going to click the Insert ribbon tab. and then you're going to click the table icon, and it just says table, has a picture of a table above it, and select the dimensions of the table. This is really easy. So I'll show you. It's just a drop down, and you just select how many rows by how many columns. For example, 4 cells and by 4 cells to make a square table. I'll show you this, don't worry. And then formatting that table, we have different options. You want to hover over your cursor over the table and then right click. And then you can select different options. So you can select kind of the style of the borders. So 1 line, 2 lines, bold line, thin line, as well as the colors. You can also, similar to Excel, you can merge cells. So if you have 2 cells beside each other and you want it to be one big cell, you can merge them together. You can center the text in your table and change the direction of the text. And I'll show you all these options in a minute. Anytime you're manipulating a table, you're editing a table, the table tools menu will appear up in that ribbon tab, and it gives you different options for editing your table. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So we're going to go find a place to insert a table. We have one there already, but we'll start from scratch. Okay. Let's say I want a table after this paragraph. So we'll go to insert table, and let's say I want it to be a 4 by 5 table. Okay, which means we have 4 rows and 5 columns. So rows are the horizontal sets of cells here, and columns are the vertical sets. So we have our 4 by 5 table here. So that's fine. I mean, it's pretty basic, kind of plain. So let's say we want to change this a bit. Well, if you go see up here, a new menu has appeared, and that's table tools. So that gives us different options. So we can change, for example, our border styles here. Let's say we want the border a little bit thicker. Whoops, sorry, folks. Or we want shading. Here, borders. So let's say we select all borders. So that's just for our current cell, but let's say we want it for all of our cells. Go to all borders. There we go. So now we have thick lines for all of our cells here, for all the borders here, which maybe that's a slightly more interesting, still a little plain. Say, well, I want to jazz this up a little bit more. Thankfully, we have different preset options available for our tables here. So I like blue. We'll select blue. And then you'll see now we have dark blue first row here. That's pretty common in terms of visual design because that's where you would often have your headings. So let's say we had a table of people's names. So we could have last name, first name, middle name. What's another field? Age and gender. Okay. So if it were me, for example, Dixon, Andrew, James, 36, old, male. Okay. All right. So now we have different options or different text we can play with here. So what are some other things we could change? We could change the text direction. So right now it's horizontal, but let's say we wanted vertical for whatever reason. Switch it so it looks like that. Not sure why you would want that, but maybe if you have a lot of information, you're trying to squeeze it into one page, you can have thin columns and vertical text. Or let's say we want to change the border style for these cells. I'll change it to that. Sorry, folks. Border styles. Here we go. 10 color, borders, there. All right. Say all borders, or just the outside borders. Okay. So just outside borders means these internal borders here don't change. Just play with it. See what you think looks good. There's a saying, less is more. So don't make your table too crazy with too many different colors, too many different borders or whatever. For For example, this looks a little silly now, so I might do Control Z or Z to undo that. So it looks a little less silly, a little bit more professional. Okay. Scroll down here, we have a different table here. You'll see there's other things we could change. For example, we have our text is centered in this table. How do you change the text and where it is? Or you could change it to align left, align center, align right. So it's just like if you were changing a paragraph, you use those same settings. Line left, line center. Stick with that. Okay. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is how we create a table and then adjust how it looks. Go back to our slides here. Just time check here, 11:33. Okay, it's about 10, 15 minutes ago. Equations. So you all know equations. For example, Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or theory of relativity, Einstein, E equals mc squared, all that. That's an equation. So how do we put equations into a Word document? Thankfully, there's a simple equation menu that you can use. So you want to place your cursor on the part of the document where you want the equation to appear. Next, you click on the Insert ribbon tab and click the equation icon. That's the equation icon, what looks like the pi symbol. Then a drop-down menu will appear with several common equations. So if it's some equation that's pretty well known, so you see Pythagorean theorem, quadratic formula, area of a circle, those are already there. You can just click Insert. Or if you found out a new equation for cold fusion and you want to share it with the world and you want to put that equation into your document, you can click Insert New Equation. That'll be near the bottom of the drop-down menu. So I'll show you what this looks like here. Okay, so let's say we want our equation to appear after this paragraph. So we go to Insert, and then you'll see it's a little bit smaller on my version of Word. So if you're ever lost, just remember different versions of Word, it might look slightly different. So I click Equation, and let's say I want to put in, we'll go with quadratic formula. I remember that from algebra class. Okay, so we have our equation here. It's inserted. You could save it as a new equation if you want, like if you're going to be using this equation often. You change it to inline, so it appears. You move it so it's a little bit smaller, so you can have it in line with your text. Or display, this is more kind of like a block quote. This is more centered, it's a little bit larger than the text around it. And you'll see here, equation tools icon has popped up. So you can insert different symbols, fractions, integrals, functions here, the sine, cosine, tangent, all that. You can insert a matrix or matrices, more than one is there. So those of you who are engineers, physics, math, chemistry also potentially, you might be using equations very often. So this is a great way to insert common equations or to insert a custom equation into your document. Okay. Okay, I think we covered all that. Yeah, we have our superscript, integrals, matrices, etc. Great. Time to save. So again, just quickly type Control S on your keyboard or go to File, Save to save your document. All right, so that's kind of the first portion of the workshop done. We kind of created our test document. We played with the paragraph settings. We played with how it's aligned on the page. We did how do we do an indent, regular indent versus a hanging indent. We learned to insert charts, tables, equations. So that gives you kind of a basic idea of some of the things you can do with Word. Obviously, we went through that pretty quickly. So if you ever need help, we can always set up a meeting like this, and in the chat, you'll see the meetup link. Because sometimes I can explain something to you in theory, but when you have your document open and you're trying to figure it out, it can be a little confusing. So in that context, we can set up a meeting and I can help you play with the settings in Microsoft Word. Like a lot of software that you're learning, a lot of it's trial and error. So sometimes we just have to try different things until you get the look that you want. But if you're stuck and for some reason I'm not available or your peer leaders aren't available, there are lots of wonderful online resources that can help you. I really like Algonquin College. They're a college in Eastern Ontario. They have a great Microsoft Office tutorials, including for Microsoft Word. So the link is there, and I'll be sharing all of these documents with you. So don't worry about copying and pasting that link. I'll share them with you at the end of the presentation. Or just type in Algonquin College Microsoft Office tutorials into your favorite search engine. It should come up. But they have lots of helpful instructions and short video kind of tutorials to help you with common tasks in Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So it's a great resource. I really admire Algonquin for putting that out there for students, not just their students, but any students across the world to use. I think that's great. Oops, I think I clicked the wrong thing. Sorry. There we go. And another nice thing is that they have tutorials for different versions of Office. So if you have an older computer and you're using an older version of Office, I think they go back all the way to 2010 or 2013, as well as more recent versions too. Okay, now we're going to be talking a little bit about APA formatting. APA, for those of you that don't know, is the American Psychological Association. They have a standard set of formatting for reports, papers, books that are commonly used in the social sciences, as well as certain STEM subjects. So I think we use these common APA in BASE and EFAS, so we'll be going through how to use them and some good resources for using APA. But there are other style guides out there. MLA, for those of you doing liberal arts, MLA is very common. History majors like myself, we use Chicago a lot. So there's lots of different style guides out there, but we'll be focusing on APA because that's what most of you all will be using. The Purdue OWL is a great site here. You'll see I have a screenshot, Purdue University in Indiana. This is probably one of the best websites in the world in terms of figuring out how to format using these different style guides. If you haven't been there before, it's owl.english.purdue.edu/OWL. Just Google Purdue OWL, it'll come up. It'll be the first link. Okay. So what does an APA paper look like? Well, I'll show you in a minute. But in the documents I'm going to share with you, you can download some sample APA papers. So this one is a sample paper from the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, which I'm going to open in a minute. And why this is useful is it's nice sometimes to just refer to a paper that's properly formatted, that you know has been properly formatted. You can kind of copy, not the content, don't copy the content, that's plagiarism, but you can copy the format. See, okay, that's what APA formatting looks like. In this case, APA version 6. Okay, I'll copy and paste this link into the chat box here. So just bear with me, folks. This is a Google Drive folder that I'll be sharing with you. If you're currently in a country that does not permit access to Google Drive, don't worry, I'm going to be doing a screen share also, and I'll be sharing these documents on the Learn website for BASE and EFAS, so don't worry. But I'm going to open up my sample template here and do a screen share. So you'll see in that Google Drive folder, there's different documents. We're opening the one that's called Sample APA template, UW Green Bay, University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. Okay, so we've opened that up here. Document looks like this. So we have our title page with the running head at the top. This is APA 6th edition, okay? APA 7 is slightly different, and we'll have some documents for you that kind of show the differences. Always ask your professor, your instructor, what version of APA they use. It's usually in the syllabus, or they'll explain in the assignment requirements. But if not, just send your teacher a quick email and ask them, because there are some subtle differences between them. And you'll see in the text of the document, it shows how the running head should look on subsequent pages. Has the format, so abstract centered here, double spacing, okay. Inline citations, what that looks like, okay. You see more citations in brackets here. So this gives you an idea of what an essay that's formatted or a report that's formatted in APA should look like. So this is just a great document. You just want to quickly look. You're like, okay, I know this is properly formatted in APA. What are they doing for their citations? What are they doing for their running head? What do they do for their title page? And you want to make sure your format matches their formatting. Like I said, this one's APA 6, version 6 though, so make sure that if you're referring to this, that your professor, your instructor is using APA 6. And we have at the end references, the references page. So this shows you kind of how your references should look based on the type of document. So we have one that's book, getting started with 6th edition APA. We have the publication manual for APA, and then also just some kind of blank ones. So they have, for example, one for a journal article, one that's just for a chapter of a book, etc. The Purdue OWL also has different formats for citations depending on the type of book, or references depending on the type of book or type of source. So if it's a video, it's a website, whatever, you can look that up on the Purdue OWL also. Okay, so what are some other documents that are useful for us to share here? One, I'm going to open two here, actually. We just had a look at an APA 6 document. I'm just going to screen share an APA 7 one. This is from the Purdue OWL, actually. Just bear with me just a moment. This is a PDF, but you'll see there's different kind of captions here in different colors explaining the different important parts of this document. So this is APA version 7 for student papers. And you'll notice there's some changes. So for example, it says there's no running head for student papers in APA version 7. Running heads often give students trouble, so maybe that's why they got rid of it for version 7. If your professor and instructor is using version 7, great. You don't have to deal with the running head. If they're using version 6, you have to make sure you still do that running head. Otherwise, it's very similar. It explains the formatting choices. So it says the paper's title should be centered, bold, and written in title case. Title case meaning that every letter of every major vowel or verb or article capitalized. Then explains how the word abstract should appear, where the page number should appear. Then also explains different conventions for your paper. It has different important notes as well. Different style conventions, for example, spell out abbreviations the first time you use them. So let's say we had an abbreviation ELI for English Language Institute. The first time I type out English Language Institute, I should spell out the whole name. But afterwards, in brackets, I'll put ELI. And then any subsequent time I refer to the ELI in my paper, I can just type out ELI. I don't have to spell out the whole word. Okay. So we're running out of time here, but these two documents, I have another one that's for APA 6, so you can compare them and you can see what the differences are between an APA version 6 formatting and APA version 7. Like I said, please do ask your professor or your teacher if you don't know which version of APA you should be using. But both these documents are great because they show you what a properly formatted APA document should look like. For other information like what different types of references should look like, I strongly encourage you to refer to the Purdue OWL website for different examples of references and citations. Okay, let me stop my share here. I think that's all for my slides. I'm just going to double check. Yes. So that was very briefly kind of explaining different ways you can manipulate, edit your document in Microsoft Word, as well as some helpful resources for APA formatting. For the next few minutes, I am available if you have questions about Microsoft Word or APA. I might not know everything, but I'll do my best to help. Otherwise, you have access to that Google Drive folder with different sample documents. You're welcome to use that and share that with other students. The more the merrier. Otherwise, I will be posting all these documents on the BASE and EFAS Learn websites for those of you that don't have access to Google Drive. And you can download these sample documents and my PowerPoint slides there. Stop my recording here, but thank you all for coming. I will stick around for a couple minutes if you have questions.